Hey guys, so farting, it can be a problem. It's a common complaint from people going vegan. It can even be a reason for people to stop going vegan or to not go vegan in the first place. This isn't just a potential problem for veganism, but really for any dietary change, particularly if it's sudden and especially if it involves eating more plants, more vegetable matter, and the prebiotics that they contain. And obviously, usually dietary changes do involve that, right? People are trying to eat healthier, trying to eat more fiber, trying to eat more plants. I don't want it to sound like I'm just blowing this off and like, yeah, you're gonna fart, no big deal. Flatulence isn't a bug, it's a feature, right? Like, it is socially awkward. But from a health perspective, some farting is obviously very normal and is actually indicative of a healthy gut flora. Eating foods that cause gas is the only way for the microbes in the gut to get nutrients. If we didn't feed them carbohydrates, it would be harder for them to live in our gut. And we need to keep these colon-dwelling critters content. When they gobble up food and create gas, they also make molecules that boost the immune system, protect the lining of the intestine, and prevent infections. And sometimes they make some smells come out of our bodies that we would rather not happen, and that's usually okay too. Most gas made by the microbiome is odorless. It's simply carbon dioxide, hydrogen, or methane, but sometimes a little sulfur slips in there. That's when it gets smelly. But here's the hitch. Many of the smelly sulfur compounds in vegetables have healthful properties. Take, for instance, the broccoli, mustard, and cabbage family. These brassica vegetables are packed with a sulfur compound called sulforaphane that is strongly associated with a reduced risk of cancer. So that's all well and good, but it still sucks. Like, no one's really happy about farting, let's be honest. So vegan dietitian Dina Aronson, she does have a few recommendations for reducing gas. Swallowing air may lead to gas. To reduce the amount of air swallowed, chew and swallow slowly and take small sips of beverages. Avoid carbonated beverages like soda, seltzer, and beer. Chewing gum and sucking on candy may also increase the amount of air swallowed. Some foods are gassier than others. For example, cabbage typically leads to more gas production than carrots. Keep track of which foods give you the most and least gas, and adjust your diet accordingly. In general, smaller beans, lentils, split peas, produce less gas than larger beans like fava beans and lima beans. So choose smaller beans more often. If you use canned beans, rinse them very well before eating them. If you make beans from scratch, soak them overnight first, rinse them well, and rinse them several times during the cooking process, as this will help get rid of more of the gas-causing oligosaccharides. Also, the longer you cook beans with rinsing, the better. Eat small, frequent meals rather than few, large meals. Avoid overeating. For those situations where you need a little extra digestive help, try Beanzyme, which is a vegan form of Beano. Just because you go vegan, this doesn't mean that you have to load up on cabbage, broccoli, and gassy beans. There are a lot of great vegetable options that are typically lower gas producers. You can also try adding in more vegetables gradually to give your system time to adjust, which it almost certainly will. Our findings have several practical applications within the fields of nutrition and public health. First, perception of flatulence increase is variable by bean type and across individuals. Second, after a few weeks of daily bean consumption, people perceive that flatulence occurrence returns to normal levels. Third, a small percentage of individuals may be bothered by increased flatulence regardless of the length of time they consume legumes. To help the public incorporate more beans into their diets, the potential of increased flatulence should be addressed. People can be made aware that increasing beans in the diet may result in more flatulence initially. However, clinicians are in a good position to emphasize that the flatulence will decrease over time if bean consumption is continued, and that the nutritional attributes of beans in the diet outweighs the potential for transitory discomfort. The long-term health benefits of bean consumption are great. Stressing these health promotion aspects to consumers, as well as imparting practical knowledge that perceived increases in flatulence are most likely temporary, can go far in persuading consumers to add more beans to their diet. Some helpful suggestions might be to initially eat smaller portions of beans or to divide servings of beans in half. Consumers should also evaluate different bean varieties to determine if certain types produce greater desirable or undesirable symptoms than others. So give your system time to adjust by going easy on the beans and gradually working up to more beans, or just go all out on the beans all at once and take some Beanzyme to help, your system deal with it. That really works for me anyway. I know when I didn't eat very many vegetables during my pregnancy, and then afterwards I started eating more vegetables again. and it was painful. It was not very comfortable, so I would take some beanzyme along with it, and it was totally fine. I could eat all the broccoli I wanted to. So yeah, I could go either way, take the beanzyme short-term or long-term, really. Beans are still really good for your health, even without the prebiotic aspects. You could try some probiotics as well, as they may actually help to reduce the number of flatus episodes. That's my new favorite phrase. If you have tried these options and they just don't work for you, either gradually working up to more beans or, using beanzyme, then you may want to try some other protein sources. Tofu could be a helpful one, and also tempeh. Nuts and seeds are other good options. Quinoa and amaranth, they are good protein sources, good lysine sources, but a lot of people seem to have trouble with those as well. There are also the processed options, so mock meats. They tend to produce little to no gas since they're made from isolated protein sources that have most of the indigestible starches removed. But obviously they are going to be significantly more expensive than a bag of beans. And please remember that it's not an either or between plants, vegetable matter, and highly sentient animals like cows, pigs, and chickens. Oysters are a good option for people struggling to go totally vegan, since they are very likely not sentient. I have a video on this here. Although obviously they're not like the tastiest thing. I mean, I don't know. How do I know? I've never even had oysters, so I don't know. They look disgusting. I think I would assume it's an acquired taste, but I don't know. Maybe they're delicious. So that's it, really. I hope that's helpful. Basically, you don't have to become a stinky pariah in order to help animals, prevent animal suffering and just make better choices, right? I'll also add that for me, I find that like sugar and beans don't go great together for me, and they make some pretty gnarly farts. The smell is just... it's pretty terrible. And the sugar source doesn't seem to matter. It could be Ben & Jerry's or it could be bananas. It just doesn't. If I eat like several bananas in a day, like 2 or 3 bananas, and I have lentil soup at some point, it's just awful. So I find that limiting the sugar makes a difference. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on there. I don't even know. Maybe there's really something else going on. I don't know. But that seems to work for me. So regardless of the sugar source, again, bananas or other fruit, I do try to limit that. So I have like a banana in my oatmeal, and maybe I'll have a little bit other fruit later on. There's a little bit of sugar in like my peanut butter, a little bit of Splenda that I use in my coffee. And then sometimes I'll have like really junky stuff like Ben & Jerry's. I always say Ben & Jerry's, but I'm realizing that's like the last really junky, sugary thing that I had was the Ben & Jerry's that I did the taste test for. Oh, and I guess the peanut butter pretzels. But even those, I mean, really, if you're going to eat like a shitty junk food, peanut butter pretzels are really like the best ones, right? They've got a little bit of protein from the peanut butter and a little bit from the pretzels, I guess. And they're not super, super sugary. They're not super, super salty. They're really probably like one of the better junk foods. So, and they helped me not get sick. So that's just science. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions, of course, leave them down below. And of course, any tips for dealing with gas. I'm sure some of you have had this problem. I have in the past. I guess the worst was when I went from like eating mostly fruit to then eating beans and stuff, and my body was just like, what the fuck? What is this? What's happening here? I'm not prepared for any of this. Yeah, so it took a long time for my body to adjust to that. But again, I wasn't coming from like a normal eating pattern at all. So yeah, but any tips I'm sure would be super helpful. So leave them down below and subscribe if you want to subscribe. And of course, extra special thank you to patrons over at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan for supporting the channel. As I talked about in, well, I guess I'll link it in this video. The adpocalypse is still happening. Some are saying that it's here to stay. And this has cut the ad revenue for the channel down. I was thinking it was cut it down by a third. It's actually about a half. So I thought I was making 2/3 of what we were making before. I'm actually making about half of what I was making. So that's pretty substantial. So yeah, that's why I've started up Patreon again, and everyone over Patreon is being super awesome and supporting the channel, so that's great. Yeah, and of course, extra special thank you to these patrons in particular: Alec Larson, Ali Perception Trainers, HS Ross, Isidro, James Baker, and Jody Lucas. Thank you again, everybody, and I will have a new video hopefully soon.